And so we've moved from about 21,000 applications when I arrived in 2021 to over 44,000 applications just this year, which is incredible.
Welcome to Being the Change, the official podcast of James Madison University, brought to you by Madison Magazine. Each episode brings you stories of how members of the JMU community combine intellect with action to live lives of purpose and meaning. That's being the change.
What's up, JMU? Andy Perrine here. Welcome to Being the Change. Today we're going to be talking about something that is very exciting in the James Madison University community, and that is the university's increasing popularity among prospective students. And with us to discuss this is the expert on campus on this topic, Melinda Wood, who's the VP of Enrollment Management at JMU. Melinda, welcome.
Hi, Andy. Great to be with you today.
It's so great to have you. And Melinda's been with the university about 4 years. She came to us from Elon. And if you know anything about higher ed, Elon was a rising star and made a name for itself as a smaller school that now has a great reputation. Melinda brought her skills here as the director of admissions, and with less than a year ago was elevated to the vice president of enrollment management because she's doing such a knock-up job. So, and I was on the search committee for that position, and the competition was incredibly stiff. So it was a great hire to get you and Melinda. Well, there's some amazing numbers in our growth in applications over the last 4 years. It's over 80% growth in the last 5 years.
Yes.
How do we account for that incredible rise?
It is an incredible story to tell. And I feel so fortunate to be able to be in a community that is seeing so much growth and national attention coming into the university. And so, and I attribute a lot of that success to the university's work before my time. Mm-hmm. And I have the honor and the privilege of elevating that, right? Telling the good story about the university. And my favorite thing to say as of late is JMU is no longer this best kept secret in the Shenandoah Valley, right? People know about us and they want to be a part of the institution. And so what have the pleasure of watching is the tremendous upward trajectory. And so we've moved from about 21,000 applications when I arrived in 2021 to over 44,000
just this
applications just this year, which is incredible.
And that growth, which is over 80%, comes at a time when the demographic tides are really not in our favor to a large degree. A lot of schools are having a great struggle getting a lot of applications. What do you think are the factors that contribute to our rise in popularity?
Sure. So you're right. I mean, we are seeing trends across the country that are showing declines in enrollment, both in the public sector and private, and declines in applications. And it's been, I would say, a real difficult challenge for institutions to rebuild after the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And I always think about the institutions that responded in a very proactive and positive way coming out of the pandemic are the ones that are telling the most successful story. And that is JMU, right? We really kind of learned some great lessons during moments where we had declines in applications and we were pivoting to make sure that we can be successful in enrollment. Students had positive experiences. And so when you can build off of that kind of success story and then you create bridges to increase your applicants, you have a national rise in from a move to R2 athletics. I mean, can we talk about the success on and off the field that we're seeing in athletics?
Right.
All of that culminates into this positive momentum that we're seeing. And so I do think that we're probably the envy. Not probably, I think we are the envy.
Probably here at conferences,
of many institutions because of the success story, especially in the times that we face in higher education. There are very few that are seeing the trends that JMU. I mean, we're bucking all of the trends that you would typically see right now.
Well, and you described a confluence of events, and some of it was strategic, some of it was propitious. But right when you got here, we went to R2, which is, we became a research institution.
Yes.
We were before that a regional master's institution, and that put us on the national rankings for U.S. News and World Report. And that is not the tome that it used to be. It's not the go-to for everybody, but it's still looked at as an important step. And so we landed on the national list. Athletics started to go crazy after we got to the Sun Belt.
Yes.
We went to the Common App, which makes it easier for students to apply. And also you mentioned, back around 2018, 2019, we were a little soft in applications, and the university invested in a lot more marketing and advertising funds. So all of those things together have created this perfect storm for JMU. Right. Now, what I find super exciting in this year is that a lot of the growth is coming from out of Virginia.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, so I think that when I came into JMU, I wanted to make sure that we were able to meet our enrollment goals for out-of-state students, because that's a primary driver, strategic enrollment or strategic plan for the university. And so I focused in on where we do really well. Where do we have alumni bases throughout the country? How do we tap into the resources that already exist? And then strengthen those relationships to bring fruit back to the university, right? To bring prospective students from out of state to us. And so while we continue to see incredible applications and growth from places like the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast, we'll always had a historical pipeline to JMU. Families after families have come from New Jersey and New York and Pennsylvania, and all of that remains to be the case today. But we're also seeing expansion from students who are interested in the South. So places like North Carolina, Florida, Georgia, Texas, increasingly places in the Midwest like Illinois and Colorado, and all the way to the West Coast, California and Washington are showing in strong interest. And so one of the things that I'm amazed by is our applicant pool today represents all 50 states, 119 countries in our applicant pool. And that's impressive. We did not have that kind of reach even as recently as 2019, 2018. Sure. I mean, all of that has changed. And so to your point, we have, I think, strengthened our core message about the institution, and we're telling a stronger and better story about JMU. And that is resonating with students who want to be a part of a campus that's on the move.
Melinda, you've talked about how JMU's appeal has broadened. I mean, I think 50% of our applications this year were from out of state, and from 160 countries, as you mentioned.
Yes.
But we're also doing things to really concentrate locally in the Shenandoah Valley to make sure that there's opportunity for students nearby to also enjoy the fruits of this wonderful enterprise that is James Madison University. And we just announced recently a new co-admission partnership with the Blue Ridge Community College. Can you tell our listeners a little bit how that works?
Oh, I'd be happy to. Yeah. It's an exciting new opportunity that focuses on our students here in the Valley, because I think one of the most important things that we have a responsibility in higher education is to make sure that we're serving students in our own backyard. And so what a best way to do that if we to invite them in different capacities, right? Whether that's admitting them in to be a part of our first year class, or it's welcoming them through the transfer process. And so the BR to JMU program is designed as a transfer pathway specifically for students in the Shenandoah Valley.
And you describe being part of a campus. One of the things that we say in enrollment marketing, which is in my area, which supports admissions all the time, is that if we can get them to come to campus early on in their search, they're far more likely to matriculate. What do you think it is about JMU that delivers that, oh my gosh, this is home?
Yeah. Oh, that's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah. It is home. I can remember when I was interviewing to be a part of the JMU community as director of admissions, and I walked away with the feeling of community, a place where I could be a person a place that people would be welcoming and supportive. And that translates to prospective students because this community is incredible. It is a place that truly wraps their arms around our student community and makes them, I think probably the best way to say it is when you have a campus environment of 22,000 students, it's really difficult to make it feel personal, but yet JMU does that amazingly well.
You mentioned 22,000 students. One of the things that we see, especially in social media, when we put out these stories about JMU applications soaring 80% over the last 4 years, is the misunderstanding that more applications equates to a higher enrollment.
Yes.
And where we are right now is where we're comfortable at 22,000. And for the foreseeable future, we're going to stay there, right?
Yes, that's right. You're right. And a lot of people perceive more applications to be more students that will enroll. And that's not necessarily the case. If we wanted to grow,
we certainly could.
We certainly could.
Right.
But the goal is to hold steady at about 22,000 total students for the university, which looks like about 4,800 new students coming into the university annually to be able to maintain that. So having a larger applicant pool means that we have the ability to select the students that we want to be a part of the institution, right? We have high academic achieving students that are applying to JMU, and we want them to be a part of our community. We've seen impressive growth from students who identify as first in their family to go to college. We are also seeing more students who perhaps are in the low income or from rural areas. We've also seen a great demographic shift in terms of the number of students of color who are now applying to the university, historic in comparison to what we had in the past. And I attribute that success to being a part of the Common Application because it reduced barriers to application for students, and they could submit one application and send it to all the schools that they are interested in. It just happens to be that all Virginia public schools and all the Virginia private institutions are on a part of the Common App.
Right.
And so students can more easily apply and access JMU.
Right.
And so it's made it better. It's positioned JMU to be more successful and more accessible to students who are interested and have heard our story.
And to what degree do you think, and you just recently presented to the Board of Visitors about the university going standardized test optional, which we did right before you got here.
That's right.
And one of the misconceptions is that often can lead to a lowering of quality students because the standard is not applied. But what you said to the board is after these 5-6 years of test optional, there's demonstrable evidence to prove that no, the student quality is actually on the rise. Isn't that right?
That's very true. And there's a couple ways that you can measure that, right? A real quick way to kind of do a barometer check is by looking at the admit rate. 4 years, that admit rate has come down significantly. And so that speaks to the quality of our pool and our candidates. Another way that we can look at that is by retention of students.
Right.
And we can look at our graduation rates being stable and continuing to rise, I would say, in recent years. And also student outcomes, job placement at the end of their 4-year experience at, 96%,
96% is the most recent report.
And that is an incredible story.
Right.
And so I think that the quality of our student interest and the quality of the students that are coming to JMU is as high as it ever has been.
We talked about the demographic trends and how our amount of applications is somewhat bucking the trend. Some of our listeners may have, this is kind of inside higher ed talk, but some of our listeners may have heard of what we're calling the enrollment cliff, which is a somewhat precipitous decline of college-age students because of the decline in birth rates.
Yes.
After the baby boom Their children cycled through school. They were mostly done a couple of years ago. Now there's a trough after the peak. What do you anticipate JMU's prospects going forward in weathering the choppy waters, to mix metaphors, coming with the enrollment cliff?
I think it's something that we have to pay attention to, right? I want to be mindful that this shift is coming as we see a lower number of high school graduates in the future. But I think JMU is positioned really in a strong position to weather the enrollment cliff storm that may show itself down the road. And the reason I say that is because the community environment is so strong. The story of success of our students is also equally strong. And so people want to be a part of that. They want to be a part of a place that's thriving and where they too can see success in their story and in their future. And so that momentum, I think, is going to carry us far. And as long as we are smart about our growth and maintaining, which we've already talked about, trying to hold at an enrollment of 22,000, I think JMU is well positioned to be successful.
We do a lot of surveying of current students, recently admitted students, parents, and I talked just anecdotally to folks when they're visiting campus. And one of the dynamics I find so interesting is that it's necessary that the school has a good reputation academically, and that it has the program that the student's looking for. But really, what the parents and the student are looking for is a sense of belonging, and it's a necessary factor. That it's a good school, but it's not sufficient if there isn't the ability to feel like you belong somewhere.
That's true.
How important do you think that is, especially coming from a smaller school like Elon, to be able for the university to be able to maintain that sense of belonging, that welcome?
I think that is, from my perspective, I think that component of JMU is built into the fabric of the institution, right? That is the strength of JMU. It is a place where there's opportunity for any student to be engaged and to find their own path and build their own future through really I think, strong and steady guided hands of our faculty and staff, that there are organizations that they can see themselves being a part of. Living in the Shenandoah Valley obviously builds, I think, creates the opportunity for community. So I love the way that JMU approaches students and looking at every opportunity to engage them at whatever point they are within the university, and providing the necessary structure for them to be successful that creates that sense of belonging. And I really do think that's the fabric of what makes JMU so unique and special.
I totally agree with you, having experienced it as a student, but also, being here as an employee so long. Now, we've been talking about all the great things that have been happening, but you're in a critical role at the university, and a lot relies on your strategies, your team's success, your ability to build a class, which from a statistical analysis perspective is a very complex enterprise to make sure that you hit the number right where you want it to, because going too low, we're going to have a problem with revenue. Going too high, where are those kids going to sit?
Yes.
What keeps you up at night in this job?
That is a great question. We could probably spend 30 minutes on that. I think what keeps me up at night is I want families to understand the importance and the value of higher education, and that JMU is a place where you can get so much in personal and professional development as you're working toward the academic area of study that you have, for a strong return on investment. And so how do you tell the value in the values story, right? So I think about that a lot. I think about how does that resonate, and how to make sure that families and students who are thinking about higher education know that JMU is an incredible institution for a best value in terms of not only academic preparation but cost and attendance.
Well, you know, one of the largest data sets in the world is the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Yes.
And the BLS shows incontrovertibly that students with a college degree do just about 7 times better in terms of lifetime income than their peers who don't go to college.
Yes.
Additionally, they're more isolated from the risk of unemployment. So the going to college part is that evidence is done. But at JMU, we've got an even better story to tell. The way that you just did. Well, what's in your crystal ball, Melinda? What's in our future? What new strategies are you going to employ as we're headed into the time of declining demography? Anything that you want to give our listeners reassuring about that you've got this well in hand?
Absolutely. Things that I've been focused on since I came to the university is making sure that we're telling a story that resonates with our audience, that I'm telling that story earlier to students. I want to meet sophomores and juniors in their college search process and not wait until they're high school seniors, right? Until those decisions are already being made.
And
so a lot of
my shop helping you develop those materials.
That's right.
We're having to write to a younger student now.
That's exactly
We've never
right.
done that before. Yeah.
And so I think that those are important strategies to remember, that we're trying to reach a pretty broad audience. And we want to influence students when they're just starting to think about college. Maybe they've watched an older sibling go through the college search process and they're starting to think about, it'll be my turn soon. And so I want JMU to be in front of that sophomore or that junior in high school, and thinking about us as an opportunity so that I've had maybe 18 months or more to cultivate a relationship about what JMU is and what opportunities they may have at the university. I think waiting until a student is in their senior year of high school is a little too late.
You might not be on their list.
We might not be on their list.
Right.
We may not have time to tell the story. And so we're doing that in partnership with your team by creating new material, doing some digital advertising work, leaning into social media.
The new CRM is going to help.
The new CRM, right, to kind of cultivate these relationships and making sure that we can tell a long story and giving information as it's appropriate when they need it, right? Coming to visit campus and taking a look is a really important kind of first conversation, or giving information about different academic areas of study that a student might pursue at JMU, or talking about the amazing things that happen in X Labs, just to open the idea of possibility.
Sure.
I think is some of the best work that I get to do in this forefront, so that JMU can continue to be successful and have a long history, as we already have.
That's right. Well, Melinda Wood, it's been an absolute delight chatting with you. I hope you'll come back as the story continues to evolve.
Absolutely.
That would be great. Well, you remember, listeners, if you've got an idea for other episodes of Being the Change, you can reach us at beingthechange@jmu.edu. Melinda, thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much, Andy. This was a pleasure.
And remember, go Dukes.
That's right. Go Dukes.
Thanks for listening. Subscribe to hear more stories about how members of the JMU community are being the change. Dive deeper and explore countless other stories at jmu.edu/Madison Magazine. Go Dukes!
The Being the Change podcast was conceived by Jim Heffernan, editor of Madison Magazine, and me, Andy Perrine, head of JMU Marketing. Thanks to Jenna Polk and her team at the Rose Library Studios, where the show is recorded by Cody Troyer, Steve Adderton, and Olive Santos, all of the crazy talented JMU photo video team, who then produced the final episodes at the Ice House in downtown Harrisonburg. Original music by 2019 alumnus Neil Perrine. You can find the Being the Change podcast on all the popular platforms, where we hope you'll like, share, and subscribe.